Hey guys, it's Troy again, and I'm back with another video that kind of dovetails with what I was talking about in my last video, when I dealt with where I had put a new nib into a pen that I had purchased, and now it writes well. I've had one particular pen in mind that I've been fighting with for a long time, and I tinker with it for a little bit, get frustrated, set it down, tinker with it for a little while, set it down. And today, based upon the success I had just had in the video I had just done on changing out a nib to make a particular pen write better, I figured, well, I got a few minutes, so let me go ahead and tinker with this one. Esterbrook. No, not the vintage Esterbrook, not the venerable pens from the 1940s that were so very popular, or actually from 1858 is when Esterbrook really started. But there was a company that had revitalized the Esterbrook name. This is before Kenro bought them. And I'd seen a lot of their pens. They had some really bad reviews. I read some horrible articles about them, of course, after I'd already purchased one. But I had looked at some of their pens and I thought about buying them. Well, I did end up buying this one. Charles Schulz, you know, he did Peanuts. He was a cartoonist, and he used Esterbrook nibs. Not fountain pens, but nibs for his dip pen to do and pen his cartoon. So they came out with two Charles Schulz commemorative pens. One was white and black, like Snoopy, and this one looks like, you know, Charlie Brown colors. So I went ahead and picked it up, and actually I've talked about this pen before, and it was this one right here. It's a good looking pen. I kind of liked it. It's oversized, it fit good in the hand, it's hefty, but I was very frustrated with it because I tinkered with it. It wrote terrible. It had a horrible nib, which I do believe was this nib right there. So I kept monkeying with it, and I played with it for a while, and I'd still get frustrated. So based upon what I had just put out for a video, I decided to go ahead and tinker with it again today. So I have it writing finally, and I have it writing finally well. I mean, I could get some ink out of it before it wrote terrible. Well, I had replaced the feed previously. Nope, didn't help. Tried a different nib, didn't really help. Also replaced a converter. This time I went ahead and replaced all three. So I had a spare feed, a spare nib, and a bunch of spare converters. So I finally went ahead, and I also filled it up with an ink sample Montegrappa Dark Blue. And by the way, this was a full ink sample, and tinkering with it and filling it again, a little more and again, and getting ink everywhere. My hands are actually fairly clean. It did look like I'd strangled a Smurf with all the blue that was all over my hands. I'm surprised they came that clean so easily today. But finally, and you know what the nib was? Bulow. A 50-cent nib. Essentially, Jinhao in a different name. Go figure. And once I got it to write, it wasn't quite as smooth as I wanted, so I spent some time with a little bit of micro mesh and just a little bit of 2000 grit automotive sandpaper, and I'm talking within 2 minutes I had this pen writing extremely smoothly. I knew that I could do that because I took a nib smoothing class, and we took pens that had terrible nibs and actually had problems on purpose and got them fixed, got them working, and some right unimpressive nibs and got them writing so buttery smooth. Well, that's what I did with this one. Spent a little bit of time with it. So I'll show you what I did, and I'll show you the Bulow nib, and I will show you how this thing writes. So I mean, like I said, it's a hefty pen. You can really tell that you've got it in your hand. And that is a 50-cent nib. That writes like it costs a whole lot more now. It doesn't really match the color trim, so you got a gold tone nib with some silver trim on the cap and on the pen itself. But I was happy just to be able to get something up and running and writing. Birmingham Pens, when I placed an order, I just added a bunch of Bulow nibs for like 50 cents each. Number 6 and some number 5 nibs. But this particular pen, so it's an Esterbrook Schultz edition. And like I said, it had such a crappy nib in it previously, so I got a cheap steel nib, a 50-cent Bulow nib that I just spent some time that has been smoothed. Because I checked tine alignment on it. You know, it wrote okay. It didn't write fantastic when I first got it, but it wrote okay. But, you know, for a 50-cent nib, here's the performance that I'm getting out of it right now. Look at that. And it is right now buttery smooth. It is very smooth. Writes great. So I've got perseverance that is paid off with a 50-cent nib in a pen that I've been fighting with. I paid $65 for this pen when I first bought it. And I've been fighting with it, trying different nibs, and I've been trying, then I'd try a feed, and then I'd try whatever. Finally, I just did all three. And finally got it to work well. And like I said, this was Montegrappa dark blue. And that is a very, very dark blue. Well, anyway, there you go. The bottom line is, don't be afraid to keep trying. If you don't succeed, try again. Well, I did. I set it aside. I got frustrated with it. I didn't like my results with more expensive nibs, and I'd already used all my good replacement nibs. You know, the Knox nibs that I've had, the Jowo nibs I had. All those were already in use. So I said, well, let me try this old Bulow. I'm definitely not going to throw an IPG nib in there, but let me try this Bulow and see how it turns out. And like I said, just a little bit of the master's touch on it, and that Bulow nib is now writing extremely smooth, like you just saw. So just be encouraged. Have some spare parts. They don't have to be expensive. Learn how to do some basic nib swapping, some basic maintenance and cleaning, and I've got a video on my nib smoothing technique that works very well for me, and I'll put a link to it down below. So if you want to see how I do it, and it has been, that technique has worked great for me for the past couple of years.